Hey, and welcome back to Game Talk. I'm your host, Ahmed Beyond. Today I'm joined by Connor
Hey guys.
and Mike.
Hello.
And today I want to talk about Elden Ring. Again, 2 years later. The DLC has dropped, and it is excellent. And if I were to sum up my thoughts in like one sentence, I would say that I think a lot of AAA developers overpromise and underdeliver. Whereas I think Miyazaki and From Software have a tendency to underpromise and overdeliver. Because
this
he
thing was
really
huge.
made this DLC sound quite, I don't want to say petite, but like he made no big deal about it. He was just like, yeah, it's about the size of Limgrave. And that is just patently false. After having played, I don't know, a couple dozen hours of this. It's a massive labyrinthine map.
How far have you gotten, Ahmed?
So
I guess it's kind of hard to say.
Yeah, that's a tough question. So I don't know if we should maybe like have like general spoiler-free thoughts and then go into spoilery thoughts, but not
Yeah, I
too
think we
spoilery
should.
because you could probably spoil me, and I don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, just general thoughts. Man, what a DLC! This is probably my favorite DLC ever made. It really feels more like Elden Ring 1.5 than a DLC.
Yeah, I'm going to have to sit on it a lot longer, I think, to make a call like that, because I've played some incredible DLCs this year. And just as an aside, we have more incredible DLC coming this year. Like, kind of an insane year for it.
I know I'm going to kick myself for not thinking of it, but I can't think of... So what are you talking about?
What I've been playing is the Monster Hunter DLC, which is, in the same way as Elden Ring, basically a whole nother game.
And yeah, I do hear the Monster Hunter DLC is like tends to be transformative.
Yes, it is. It just like it used to just be another game, and instead of releasing an ultimate version of the game, they just release a DLC now. But it is like very comparable in size to the Elden Ring DLC, which is huge praise for FromSoft. And then the other expansion I'm talking about is Factorio has its Space Age, I think it's called. I don't remember. Space expansion coming out later this year.
Right,
and that's
right.
also going to be an entire second game, almost certainly.
But yeah, no, I certainly love this trend where like these DLCs are basically games in their own right.
With games getting more expensive like they are, this is awesome. To get a $40 expansion that's the size of a game.
Oh yeah, 100% worth the $40. Like there's no even question in my mind. I think there was some consternation before this thing released that like maybe $40 was a little steep, but like after seeing like how much is just in it and how much quality is in it, it's like totally worth it.
Yeah.
And it really feels like someone on the internet put it best. Like I saw this comment that it felt like not the lands between, the shadow realm, right?
It is the Shadow Realm, yeah.
But the Shadow Realm in Elden Ring is like, what if Miyazaki took like Dark Souls 1 world design philosophy and applied it on a macro scale to like the open world? And I kind of agree with that because this world is so dense and interconnected, but like from any point on the map, you can just sort of look around and see all the areas in like really cool and creative ways. Like some are just like peeking out like over the horizon, but like you see all this stuff and you're like, I wonder if that's just like set dressing or if I can actually get to that. And like the answer like almost 100% of the time is that yes, that's like a place you can visit. And yes, there's like several paths into and out of that place, both like horizontally and vertically. It's just, it's maddening. Like such excellent world design.
Something I loved about this DLC was that there are areas you see in the first 5 minutes that you're like 10 or 20 hours from being able to get to.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like when you first start the DLC, if you look around, I think you can see basically everything. It's all like around you. You just don't like really realize. Because like with most games like this, when you open up like when you step out into like an open world kind of setting and you look around and you're like, okay, there's some clear landmarks here, but like a lot of that cool stuff in the background is probably just like in the background, right? Not an actual place you can explore, but that's just like not the case.
No,
with
it's 100% explorable. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I was immediately... I don't know if this was the case for you, Ahmed, but I actually wasn't enthralled with the DLC instantly. Like, I would have liked a cutscene to get into the new area, and there's not one. You're just kind of thrown in.
Yeah.
And so I was like a little lukewarm on it at the beginning, but I started looking around. I started getting into some of these boss fights, and it just got better the longer I played it, which was kind of the opposite of original Elden Ring, which I was immediately enthralled with, but then the late game slows down in a way that I wasn't super on board with.
Mm-hmm.
But the DLC felt like it just got denser as I went in and more exploratory. But that's not to say, like, immediately this first area is gorgeous. Like, you look up and there's, like, this shadow castle in the sky and, like, this grave plain you're walking around, and you can see all these different colored areas around you.
Yeah. I mean, just visually, it's just, and art direction-wise, just completely stunning. Like, no one really does this kind of, like, dark fantasy world design quite like From Software. And yeah, I do agree that, like, the beginning areas is definitely the most boring, right? You have to, like,
extremely, yeah,
kind of like actually venture out in a direction to be like, okay, this is still Elden Ring. This is still, you're still going to get those really good legacy dungeons. You're still going to get those really good boss fights. You're still going to get that really, really rewarding world exploration. But maybe before we continue on with our general thoughts, I want to give you a little bit of a story, right? So
Okay.
I was on vacation for the last, 2 weeks? I was gone for a while. And the first week of that, I was with a bunch of friends in, like, a house in Florida. And this house had a game room, so obviously we used that a lot. And much of the time, we were playing Elden Ring. So we had started a new character, and we made it a kind of goal to be like, okay, we want to get this character DLC ready by the time the DLC drops, which is a tall ask, right? This is starting from zero. Granted, we have game knowledge, but, like, it's still going to be, like, several hours of play to get to that point. So that's what we did, right? So we made a character, and it was really, really fun, right? Like, we were just, like, passing the controller back and forth. But yeah, we made our way through Stormvale Castle. We killed the what's her name in the Academy of Raya Lucaria. We killed Radon, and on, like, the last day, like, before the DLC dropped on midnight, we made it to Moog. And our character, like, yes, we went through, quote unquote, the game, but, like, it was not like a traditional playthrough, right? We definitely speedran some stuff. We definitely skipped some stuff. So this guy was a bit, like, weaker than, say, like, my character, your character. And we had limited flasks too. We didn't find all, like, the seeds for the flasks. Our flasks weren't at max potency. So there were a lot of sort of caveats that made this character, like, more difficult to play. So we fought Moog, and that was pretty challenging, right? Like, on this character, I died to Moog over and over and over and over and over and over again. And it was such a rush when I finally beat him. Like, it felt great. And then we were finally ready for the DLC, and it just so happened that the DLC came out on midnight of our last night there, so we didn't have much time with it. But it felt rewarding, right? Because we set out on this goal at the beginning of our vacation. We finally got there, and we did manage to play a decent amount of the DLC, like a small amount, right? Like the beginning. We made it to the Dancing Lion, which, I guess, spoilers, is like the first boss. It's not really a spoiler.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Not the first boss. The first like, progression boss.
Right.
Actually,
it doesn't have to be the first boss, but we'll go into that later. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. But so fast forward a week from then, because I spent another week in Florida with some different friends, and, like, no Elden Ring got played then, which is sad, but we had fun anyway. But when I come back home, try to play more Elden Ring on this character, and I'm just like, it's not going to happen. It's just simply not going to happen. So I made the decision to go on my character, my main, and just go through New Game Plus.
Oh my god.
So I very quickly, like in the span of like 2 or 3 hours, got to the DLC, which was crazy, right?
Right. Yeah, you only have to beat, like, Radon and Moog, really.
Right. And especially once you have, like, an established character, it's so much easier, right? Because you have the flasks, you have, like,
is it
really
Moog
good
an optional
equipment.
Boss?
Moog is, yeah, so is Radon.
For the DLC, Moog is required, though.
I thought Radon was a required boss.
Yeah, for the DLC he is.
I think
Like, you
he
can
might
beat
be.
the main game without beating... I'm pretty sure without
You only have to
beating
beat
Radon
2
mode?
of them, I think, to beat the main game. So
Yeah.
you could beat, like, Rykard and Godric, I think, and you'd be able to beat the main game, I think.
Mm.
Yeah, you don't have to fight him.
Yeah.
But yeah, but for the DLC, right, so Radon and Moog are required. But I did... Like, yeah, I basically got on my horse, ran straight to Radon, and just killed him, and did the quest line to get to Moog faster, because there's like 2 ways to get to Moog. One is like by doing this quest line, you get there way earlier than you're supposed to be. The other is
Right.
like actually going through like the capital Lanedale, and then like going to the snowy area and getting the portal to Moog, which is how I did it the first time. But this time in New Game Plus, I just took my character through the quest line, immediately made it to the palace, killed Moog on like my second try, right? So like your character really, really matters.
Right, yeah. I remember you telling me how hard you thought Moog was on your character you made with your friends, and I was like, really? I mean, I don't remember it being a pushover, but it's like a 10-try boss maybe for me.
No, yeah, like, dude, I kid you not. On our character, it took, I don't even know, 5 hours?
Wow. See, I just wouldn't do it.
I mean, I'm a special kind of crazy, where I really like the abuse of just getting torn to shreds by a From Software boss.
Yeah.
But yeah, like on my main, on New Game Plus, it literally took 2 tries. It was not any big deal at all.
Yeah. What level are you?
Oh, I don't even know. So, because I'm like over 150, I think. I think after some level, though, like you stop getting stat boosts in like your defense and stuff when you level. And by the way, for the DLC, it doesn't even matter. They have a completely different like attack.
Well, it
defense
matters. It's a
system.
percentage multiplier on your base stats in the DLC.
I don't know how much it matters though, dude. Because I was like looking.
I mean, I can tell you it matters
videos.
because I respect my character, and it made a colossal difference.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I was just saying, like, I saw, like, on YouTube, a level 70 character was getting 2-shot the same way, like, a level 300 character was. So, I don't know.
Well, yeah,
because
it's... So, the Scatter Blessing, if you don't have, like... The first Scatter Blessing you get, I think, gives you 5% of your original stats. You had none of it before.
Oh, it's a percentage of your original stats.
Yes, it's not a bonus. You are nerfed.
Okay.
Yeah, and so the highest you can be at Scatter Blessing plus 20, I think, is 105% of your stats.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so it's not a bonus. It's actually like you are nerfed really badly. So if you're Scatter Blessing, or I think it's actually Shadow Tree. It's an old English spelling.
It's like an old way of saying it.
But yeah, you are nerfed, not... So like I'm like 16 right now, so I'm still like way weaker than my character should be.
Right, like, because I hear by the end boss, you really should have all of them, because you need all the tools.
And you have to get, to get every, this is my probably biggest complaint with the DLC, biggest or second biggest, you have to get every single Shadow Tree Blessing to get level 20, the max, which is not how they did the base game. There were extra seeds in the base game.
Right.
And I kind of hate that, especially because there's no rhyme or reason to where these things are. Like, some of them are just dropped by random enemies in the field.
Yeah. Some of the, like, they have kind of like unique markings, but yeah, it's like finding a needle in a haystack, right? This giant, massive world, and there's like only a few of these things around.
And they're never like at the end of a dungeon or anything, or a reward for beating a boss. They just don't do that. They're always out in the world, which I kind of hate, because the rewards you actually get for clearing these dungeons are often pretty weak, actually. Like, I'm getting like smithing stones.
Well, yes, but I think thinking about like the weapons and stuff that drop, which is
those
really
are cool. Yeah.
But just quickly to finish, I guess, my tale, I did end up going back on my main character, and now I'm enjoying the DLC heavily with him. So I'm glad, even though I didn't end up using my character, which we named Orlando, even though I didn't end up using Orlando, I'm glad we went on that journey, because like that really eased me back into Elden Ring. And I know you, Connor, you were kind of thrown in. You were just like, for a while there, you were just like, I don't know what anything is, right?
No, so what I ended up doing, I didn't replay the game, but and this is something I hadn't really touched previously, but I played multiplayer. I started helping people kill the Elden Beast. I probably spent 4 or 5 hours. I didn't even really need the runes. I wasn't leveling up that much. I leveled up from 130 to 150, I think, but this DLC throws runes at you, so I don't know when that happened exactly. But I was just killing Millennia, which I've never done before. This was the first time I'd killed Millennia, and it was in multiplayer. Congrats. Thank you. Killing Millennia, killing a lot of the base game bosses, just to kind of get my groove back. And actually, multiplayer Elden Ring is really fun. Like, yeah, highly recommend it. It's extremely fun. I didn't realize. I just never touched it.
No, it's really good. I remember playing a bit with Josh, like way back when the game came out, and it felt great. You know, like especially like you can play the whole game with like another person or another couple people if you want to. And it's
on
like
PC, there's a seamless multiplayer mod now.
Yes, and I think they rewrote it to actually work seamlessly with the DLC as well, because the DLC broke it. But yeah, there's a mod out there that makes it like instantaneous. But like I will say that, you know, considering From Software's past games where multiplayer can be like pretty esoteric, it's still a little esoteric in Elden Ring, but they've gotten much better. Like it's not that bad actually joining your friends and stuff in Elden Ring as compared to like Dark Souls, for instance.
See, I didn't do any of that. I just joined in with strangers, but I really enjoy it because like those end game bosses are really easy to me now. And it like just kind of felt good to master them in that way. And it also felt good to like, this person is summoning me because they haven't beaten this boss before. And so like it feels pretty good to go in there and make this boss look easy in front of somebody who couldn't beat it.
Yeah. So Shadow of the Erdtree. Is there anything else we want to say? Because I kind of want to just talk about my experience.
Well, if you're wanting to go into
spoilers,
let's talk about some of the controversy around it before we get into spoilers, because I think people might want to hear that. So, let's talk about the one that I think is legitimate first, because I actually have a lot of complaints about the performance of this DLC, which is actually worse than the base game performance on every platform: PC, PlayStation, and Xbox.
Yeah, I've noticed it as well, which is a real shame, because like I guess technically is where From Software just don't want to invest any of their energy, because they've got like the creativity down pat. Now,
yes,
they really just need to hire some people that can alleviate some of these issues.
Once upon a time, FromSoft was a scrappy underdog that I was willing to give the benefit of the doubt on this stuff. Like when Dark Souls first came to PC, when Blighttown ran like garbage everywhere, and even up through Dark Souls 3, like they weren't as big as they are with Elden Ring. But like now Elden Ring, come on guys, there's no like, and it's not like they haven't touched it. They added a whole ray tracing update, but they didn't give you DLSS, they didn't give you FSR, they never implemented widescreen support, they never uncapped the frame rate, they never fixed the frame rate on console. The only way anywhere, to my knowledge, to play this game at a locked 60 frames per second, I saw this in a Digital Foundry video, you play the PS4 version of the game on a PS5, and that's the only place you can get a locked 60 frames per second.
Yep.
I get pretty close to it on PC, but I ran into a really weird phenomenon that I haven't seen anybody talk. I've seen like random people on the internet talk about it, but I haven't seen like a Digital Foundry video or anything. But the game is reporting 60. Like I have a frame rate counter on my screen. It says 60, but it feels terrible. Like the frame times must just be all over the place.
Yeah, that has to be a frame time thing.
Frame pacing has always been an issue for From Software.
Yeah, how a company the size now, From Software is big. They're a big studio.
They're
now,
huge.
I do believe. Like they're one of the AAA giants. If anything.
I mean, there's certainly an argument to be made they're the best AAA developer in the world right now.
It depends.
Yeah. No, I agree that they're in the conversation, though, for sure.
Yeah, I wouldn't put them at best, because, like, you have studios like CDPR up there.
I would put, and CDPR has the technical advantage. And, like, but they're up there with, like, CDPR, Nintendo, any of the greats. Yeah.
But, so at this stage, they really need to figure out their technical issues, because I remember, like, this same conversation has happened through every one of their game releases. Like, I remember people yelling, screaming, pleading From Software when Bloodborne came out to fix their frame pacing. They just never did it.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It doesn't. And granted, like, a lot of the issues on PC, unfortunately, are more endemic issues, like, shader compilation and stuff, which they just did nothing for. Like, a lot of games these days will have a shader pre-compilation step or something. FromSoft just didn't bother to do it at all, which is frustrating, but even the people that do it often don't do it well. So I'm not that mad about that. But it's just unacceptable that they haven't... That they released basically an entire second game of Elden Ring and didn't fix it at all. That's disappointing. However, I will say that my personal issues have gotten a lot better. I found what was wrong with my PC, and I did play this mostly at 60 FPS with, like, far fewer frustrating technical issues than I had in my original playthrough of Elden Ring.
Yeah, so From Software, this is the only one thing holding you back from perfection in my eyes. So
Yeah.
please address this for Elden Ring 2 or whatever. But yeah, the other complaint, do you want to go into that, Connor?
Yeah, the other complaint is just people say it's too hard, and it's a FromSoft DLC, I don't know what you expected.
So I think I have a theory, right? Elden Ring blew up to an extent, like, way more than any of their previous games. Because Dark Souls kind of put them on the map, but Elden Ring went, like, Call of Duty levels of viral. It was just really an insane phenomenon. So you have all these new people presumably coming in that have never touched a FromSoft game before. But, like, what gets me is, if you've played the base game, it's not harder than the base game.
No, I 100% agree.
I mean, there are definitely some difficulty spikes, but, like, they're not like changing the game completely on you. That's just ludicrous. But that definitely seemed like what people were complaining about.
I would say the vast majority, like, there are many bosses in this DLC that I beat on my first try. Like, quite a few. And I don't have some cheese, like, Comet, not to dunk on anybody using Comet Azure. It's a legitimate way to play the game. But, like, I'm a melee strength build. I'm up there, up close and personal. And most of the bosses in this DLC were under 5 tries for me. There are a few exceptions, and, like, I think if you fought these bosses, the exceptions will be obvious. But there were ones, like, there's a guy called Gaius, and I'm not going to say anything about him because I don't know if you fought him yet. But
I don't remember the name, so maybe not.
Yeah, I didn't either. I had to look him up because I fought every boss in the DLC, and he wasn't memorable because I beat him in 2 tries, and everybody's
Was he just
online.
like in a cave or
no,
something?
He's out in the field, but he's a little tricky to find. I don't want to tell you how to find him because it could be a spoiler thing. But he's just a dude. I beat him like 2nd or 3rd try, and like everybody's saying like this is the hardest boss in any Souls game ever. And I was, is it, guys? Like,
specifically that guy?
the people were really, really hounding how hard he is. I also saw people calling Bale the hardest boss in any Souls game ever.
Yeah, people I saw online, and I will tell you, gosh, I don't know if we want to... Do we want to just cut it here and, like, go into spoilers? Do we want to... We're kind of trending in that direction.
Yeah, let's just say I think people are wrong about it being too difficult, and then, yeah, we can jump into spoilers.
Yes, I agree with that, too. So, all right, from this point forward, we're going to talk about our experiences in the DLC. We probably won't talk about the end game because I'm not there yet, but if you want to go in completely unspoiled, just come back to this part later. All right, so Bale the Dread. That's actually one of the latest things I did when I played Elden Ring last night. And let me tell you, that boss was hard. Like, I beat him solo. I think you're supposed to use the summon because, like, that's the quest line or whatever.
I will say with the summon, it was, like, under 5 tries for me. He was very easy.
Yeah, I think it took me maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours to beat. But
yeah, that's not super bad.
It was challenging for sure.
You're also on New Game Plus, which means like our experiences are not super comparable.
That's true. So there is a little bit of delta there, but I can't imagine it'd be too much different.
I've seen online people are saying it's pretty bad.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay,
New Game Plus adds a meaningful amount of difficulty.
Oh man,
the numbers are meaningfully bigger. Yeah.
Dang. Okay. Well, now I'm curious to see what the fight would have been like New Game, but
easier.
I'll probably never know that because
I'd
have to, play another 30 hours of the base game. But that's the other thing, man. Like, I am loving this, but like to me, like a game like Elden Ring is a one and done kind of experience. I can't imagine. You know what I mean? Like, I can't imagine ever going back playing Breath of the Wild again. I can't imagine going back and playing Elden Ring again. It's just
I have played Breath of the Wild twice.
Oh, wow.
Also, Tears of the Kingdom was playing Breath of the Wild again. But to me, at least, that's what it felt like.
But that's not any dunk on the game. Like, I I've said it before. Elden Ring is probably my favorite game ever, and I love that it's just going to be this singular experience for me.
See, I do see if I ever hit a game drought. Obviously, my backlog is huge right now, but if it's just there are so many build options in Elden Ring. I've never done a magic build in any FromSoft game, and I think I could knock out if I wasn't like. I wouldn't play it the same way, but I think I could do an Elden Ring playthrough in like 20 hours if I were to start it now with all my game knowledge.
I think so. Like our playthrough in Florida took around 25 hours.
Yeah, and if I do another playthrough, I will use summons. I will not.
Right. Yeah. Me too. Like I only have to do it once in like a hardcore way, and then I'm free to do whatever. But yeah, like I love to mess with the magic. There's so much magic in that game that I haven't even touched. You know, like. There's regular magic, there's holy magic, there's like that dark holy magic, there's all sorts of stuff.
There's
and
also
all sorts of build variety, which is just crazy that a game like Elden Ring has that much replayability. A game where you can spend like 200 hours on one playthrough is also replayable like almost endlessly. Just crazy.
Yeah, and now with the DLC, I mean,
with the DLC.
I'm not someone who takes very long to play a game, and I'm at like 140 hours with the DLC. And I haven't beat the final boss yet.
You mean like total playtime on
total
your file?
Total playtime, yeah.
I think my total playtime is around like 170, 180.
Yeah. So and you have lot. You've got a lot of DLC ahead of you, I think.
Yeah, I think so. So okay, let's talk about where I'm at because you're most certainly much farther than me.
I've seen everything.
You've seen everything. Okay, so I'll just say the last thing I did last night, I uncovered the last bit of the map that I had like still fogged up, and it was so cool. It was like in the Abyssal Forest or whatever.
Yes. Oh, I was hoping you'd seen that. That was my favorite part of the DLC.
Oh, really? Yeah. No, I was just like, what is this place? And then like my horse went away, and I tried to call him. It was like, your horse is too scared to come out. And I was like, I've never seen a message like that before. Oh my gosh.
Have you seen why yet?
Those things walking around that just insta kill you.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
That's
so
such
luckily,
a cool area.
I haven't been caught by any of those yet. Like I've managed to sneak around all of them, but like, yeah, that's kind of terrifying. And a game like Elden Ring, where like no matter how monstrous or horrifying or like imposing whatever creature you're fighting is, you know you can kill it. But this is the first time they've introduced this concept of like, nope, this is like an auto, like you lose if you get caught enemy, and you just have to sneak around it, which is a unique thing for Elden Ring or for Souls games in general.
Yeah. I also just love Frenzy. So I was like super hype. I actually kind of want to do a Frenzy New Game Plus playthrough with some of the items I found in that area.
Yeah, I'm also so like eager to dive into like some of this lore too, because like clearly like this is like a Frenzy area, like this Abyssal Forest. Like you can see it on the rocks. You can see it in like all the animals.
Right.
It's just I don't know, it's just so cool. But like, yeah, it's a spooky forest, and it was so cool. And I came across like a mansion.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I am right now. Like I like when I play tonight, I'll probably go more through the mansion and see what that's about. But
the mansion's cool.
So cool.
Also, like how you get to this area is like you're at
the
Shadow Keep, and like you find a ladder and you go down it, and then there's like 2 illusory walls or something, and then a coffin you get in, and then like it's just incredible.
That is not how I found it.
Is it not?
You know what's crazy? Okay, so this is what I love about Elden Ring. So, and this is why I do every little bit of content I come across. I search every cave, I go into every catacomb, all of it, because you just never know with these games, right? So I was just in a catacomb, right? Like, I was in a catacomb.
I was just describing how I got to that catacomb.
Oh, okay.
So maybe you found another way to get to it.
No, I think that is not how. I think we might be mixing two things up, because I did all that stuff, and it takes you to that area in like the top left of the map, I think.
Yeah, and I that was how I got to the catacomb.
There's a catacomb there too, but I think it was that the catacomb that led there? It might have been. I don't know. It's hard to remember.
But you just keep. I remember like I was playing this catacomb, and you keep going down elevators. Yes. And I kept thinking, this isn't just going to end like a normal catacomb.
And then it just opens up to a brand new area of the map you've never been in before. And like, that's why I'm like, it just validates me so hard where I'm like, I'm going to explore every cave. I'm going to explore every crevice of this place. Because stuff like that happens. It's the same thing as like Ash Lake in Dark Souls 1.
Well, it was like a Schiefer Riverwell level moment for me, because Schiefer Riverwell is like one of my
Oh,
most
yeah.
treasured gaming experiences ever. Like, genuinely one of the coolest things I've ever felt in a video game. And this was not quite on par with that, I don't think, but really close. It was this DLC's moment. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was so sick, and it's just a really cool, unique area, and I'm sure it has good like lore implications as well. Excited to watch the Vati video stuff afterward.
Oh,
but
yeah. No,
as far as like,
there's
sorry,
a single item you find. I don't think you would have gotten to it yet. Or no, have you found the minor Erdtree spell? It's up it's like in a place called Shaman Village, I think.
I don't think so.
Okay. It's just out in the field. So,
Yeah,
which is what's so crazy about this.
Come across many villages. I don't think I've found Shaman Village yet.
Are you reading item descriptions as you find them?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, you would remember this one, I think, because it is just an item you find out in the middle of nowhere, like just sitting there in this village, and it recontextualizes the entire story of Elden Ring.
That's crazy.
Like a one sentence in this little item you find, and it changes everything.
Man,
It's
now I want to find
crazy.
this thing.
Yeah, it's not. I don't know. It's on the north side of the map, but
yeah, so right now, like I think main progress wise, because Shadowkeep is like obviously like a main progress place, right?
right.
So I'm not through Shadowkeep yet, because like I kept getting distracted, kept exploring the world. So I'm like probably halfway through Shadowkeep or something. That's where I'm at in terms of main story progression.
Okay.
But I've got the whole map uncovered. I killed Bale the Dread, which like I know we talked a little bit about that fight, Connor, but like visually, just like the atmosphere around that fight, the lead up to that fight, the lightning coming down, all the dragon corpses everywhere, just phenomenal stuff.
Yeah, top 5. It is my least favorite boss that's ever been in a FromSoft game, but also probably the most visually spectacular boss I've ever fought in any video game.
Yeah. So done that. I loved finding like the Cerulean coast.
Yes, that whole area was
So
gorgeous. Yeah,
and mysterious.
Did you go to the ruins down there?
Yes, and I fought. Oh my gosh, this was the other boss fight that made me tear my hair out.
Oh,
the Putrescent Knight.
Oh, Putrescent Knight. Oh my god, yeah. See, that was another one people were wanting. That was 3 tries for me. Like,
3 tries. Wow,
3 tries.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so this is my build for what it's worth. I have the heavy hammer, the heavy brick hammer, and the heavy long club, both maxed out, fully upgraded.
So are these weapons you found in the DLC, or are you still using
No,
them?
these are from main game.
Oh, that's lame. You got to use the DLC
I know.
weapons.
Yeah, I want to do some fun with the DLC, but you have to upgrade them. And I don't like Elden Ring's upgrade system. Like, you don't know how good an item's going to be fully upgraded, and it's useless until it's fully upgraded in the DLC.
Yeah, I've just been like, if I like how an item looks and plays, I just upgrade it fully. Like, and then like obviously there have been some items where I'm like, okay, that was a mistake, but it's like whatever. So
yeah, but this was just my build.
Yeah, I'm a Dex build. I'm using the dancing blades. Remember the dancer? You fought the dancer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm using her blades. I really like them. I'm also using the hand-to-hand, which is really sick.
Oh yeah, the dry leaf. Yeah.
Yeah, the dry leaf arts, which is
those
just
are cool.
It's
the way you get it is so cool too. Like, you just have to emote
you
in front
challenge
of that guy.
Yeah. Dude, it's crazy. Like, From Software, like they've managed to fit so many different kind of styles of play into Elden Ring. Because like, who would have guessed when Elden Ring came out, you can like kung fu your way through the game? You know, like what?
Yeah. Although I do feel weird because I'd love to do a kung fu playthrough, like of the whole game.
Yeah,
and you can only do that in New Game Plus.
Yeah, you'd have to do it in New Game Plus. But the dry leaf arts are really cool. Like, I'm probably splitting, like, I'm using those dancing blades like 70% of the time. The dry leaf arts, the other 30%. I also still have my like setup from the main game that I occasionally pull out, which is the Bloodhound Fang, which is the most infamous weapon in the game, and the Morgoth sword in the other hand. I'm also sometimes use the new throwing knife weapon. Have you checked that out?
I've seen the throwing weapons. I haven't used them.
Yeah, so there's like this dagger. Yeah, there's this dagger that basically it just respawns in your hand when you throw it. So it's like this new like fighting style where you just like throw this thing like repeatedly and it just keeps coming back in your hand. It's really cool.
There's many throwing weapons. There's
there's a spear as well.
There's a hammer.
Oh, there's a hammer. I haven't
Yeah,
found
and I
that
kind of
one.
want to do a Hammer Bros playthrough.
Yeah. It's just, oh man, so good. Like already, like Elden Ring had so much variety, and this DLC just like exploded it even
Yeah.
more. But yeah, so the main thing for me, those Dex blades and the fists. Fists are really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so the other thing, yeah, so what else do I want to talk about? Rolana, I didn't realize, I was just like, maybe it's just a me thing. After I beat her, I went up and looked it up online. Some people are calling her like the hardest boss in the DLC, equal to Melania. And like, while I found her very challenging, I think that's crazy.
I just can't agree. She was a stone wall for me. Like, I was fighting her and I left. I fought her for like 5-10 tries or something and just gave up and explored some.
Mm-hmm.
But that was before I'd gotten like before I'd locked in, before I'd stopped pressing the wrong button to dodge, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Once I like knew the controls and came back and fought her, it was maybe like an hour of tries, like 2 hours tops. Like,
yeah, to me, I think still Rolana was the hardest boss in the DLC to me so far. Like, even harder than Bale. Like, it took, I think, 3 to 4 hours for me to beat Rolana.
I don't think she's going to even compare to the final boss, I think.
Yeah, I hear so much gas. There's been so much gas for this final boss. I can't wait to see what is up with this guy.
For what it's worth, I was actually really disappointed, like, visually by the final boss, but it's really hard. Like, I don't know. I feel like I could probably lock in and knock it out in a few hours, but this is a weird thing about me. I just don't beat final bosses. I usually get to them and put the game down.
Oh, that track. I mean, you did that with Melania too.
Like, I did that with the Elden Beast. I didn't beat the Elden Beast until months after.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was probably 3 or 4 months after Elden Ring came out that I finally beat the Elden Beast. I want to see everything the game has to offer, and by the time I've gotten to the final boss, I feel like I've done that.
I just like worry what the final boss is going to do to my blood pressure and lifespan.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I'm excited to hear your thoughts on him. Because there's like lore around it that I think you're going to find interesting.
This is an interesting question. So, like, I'm like halfway through Shadowkeep in terms of like main content. Am I over halfway? Or
it's really hard to measure because I actually like got to the final boss and had over half of the DLC ahead of me. Like, I got to it and I was talking to my buddy Tyler about it, and I was like, "Yeah, there's this boss," and it, like, I don't know, it kind of feels like the midpoint to me. Because I hadn't discovered most of the map. I hadn't, like...
Oh, okay. So you just kind of beelined it?
Not on purpose. Like, I didn't know that's what I was doing. But yes, I did. I just kept going and doing the coolest stuff. And, yeah. And I obviously, I didn't stand a chance. I was, like, Erdtree level 8 or something at the time.
Yeah.
Like, so I just left and did some other stuff. Came back. But, yeah, I think you're, like... 2 critical bosses away from the final boss, but there's a lot of stuff in between them.
Oh, that's great to hear.
A lot of explorable area and stuff.
Did you like the NPC quest lines? Did you just like ignore them? Because apparently there's a lot.
I didn't ignore them, but what I didn't understand about them, and my buddy Tyler revealed this to me, was that I thought when they ask you to summon them for a boss, I thought that meant I had the option to summon them for that boss, not that I had to progress their storyline.
Oh, is that true?
Yes.
Oh, that's crazy.
And so I missed all of them. I didn't.
Well, not just that. Like, so I looked up a little bit of this questline stuff just because I'm curious, and it's like classic From Software questline stuff where it's like, oh, you did this before this. Well, this is locked out forever now.
Yeah,
you know, like that kind of stuff. I'm
too.
like, okay,
yeah.
You know, like I love it, but I hate it at the same time. I'm like, come on, guys. But like, yeah, it was this thing where I was like, oh, you didn't find this guy in time? Well, now, like, his entire thing is like messed up. I'm like, oh, whatever, okay.
There is an event, I don't know if this affects the quest line or anything, but I think it does. There's an event that happens in this DLC that you have zero control over. You're literally just wandering around in the woods.
Yeah.
And it like says, the seal has broken. And you're like, what are you talking about?
Right, yeah. And, well, so I immediately had an idea what that meant because I already found like the part at the bottom where like that
hadn't been there yet. Didn't like,
I was
any
like,
idea how to get there.
I wonder if this is this thing. But what I didn't know is that like that permanently advanced everyone's quest lines to different states too.
Yeah.
It was just like, oh, okay.
And there's no way to, like, I don't even know what triggered it. Like,
so apparently when you first enter Shadowkeep, that triggers it, but I was
nowhere near.
Yeah, I was nowhere near Shadowkeep when that happened. So maybe it's just like a playtime thing or like distance thing. I have no idea.
Yeah, very strange. Yeah, I was near Shadowkeep, I guess, but like I hadn't been there yet. I didn't know about it.
I hadn't even opened the doors.
I was in
to
like
that place.
Bonnie Village or something. Like,
Dude, that's where I was too.
okay, so maybe the trigger's in Bonnie Village. But
that's like a totally optional area.
Gotta say, sick area. Love Bonnie Village. Oh my god, the lore there is horrifically upsetting.
Yeah.
Did you find the whip?
The bone whip or whatever.
The tooth whip.
Tooth whip, that's what it was. Yeah.
Disgusting.
Yeah. Thought about using it, but
yeah, I did too, because it is kind of funny. But yeah,
so many weapons, so many cool weapons. I also wanted to like mess with the backhand blades just because I think they're a cool idea, but like I have to like upgrade them all the way to even remotely. That's the other thing too. Like to even remotely consider a weapon, you have to upgrade it like heavily.
Yeah. If you're not like plus 24 for a normal weapon, plus 9
it's like
for
useless,
a somber weapon, and that's why I didn't. And I've got huge beef with that. Honestly, they should be handing me a plus 24 weapon in this DLC, in my opinion. Like, because anything else is worthless.
So I think the way they tried to mitigate that, like you probably noticed, right? Like everything drops way more stones than like the base game did.
Yeah, but that honestly annoyed me more.
Stones of like every single level, you know?
Yeah,
like,
there were even
like
a bunch of
1 through
ancient
10,
dragon.
Yeah, and yeah, there are like while the max level stones are rarer, there are like several places where you can get those in the game too.
And there are some larval tiers available here too to respec your character.
Oh, okay. I don't think I've found any of those yet.
You have to. It's something I never would have done because I don't play the game at night because I find it harder to see. So I always wait until day. And but at night in the Grave Plains, there are just larval tiers sitting out. There's a finite number, but they're just like out. So
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another thing too. I know there's like day-night sensitive stuff, but I haven't really paid too much attention to that.
Yeah. It I don't know. It annoyed me. There were also some things that I thought were going to be day-night sensitive that weren't. Like there were some confusing puzzles and some quest lines I did. I did the quest line for the Cathedral of Manus Meter, which I highly recommend you do. And I was convinced that there was a day-night thing. Like, I had done everything except the finale to it, and it took me... I had to look it up. I couldn't figure out how to do it, and it ended up just being like, I needed to walk up somewhere and press a button.
What NPC do I have to talk to for that?
It's it's at the cathedral, and it's the dude sitting in the chair.
Oh, yeah, I've talked to him.
Yeah, he gives you, like, a map to a ruin.
Yeah, so, yeah, the finger ruins, that's another thing,
the finger ruins were
I first
sick,
came across that, I was just like, oh my god.
No, my buddy was suggesting that maybe that's where the 2 fingers came. There are 2 of them on the map, so the 2 fingers came from one, the 3 fingers came from another.
Right.
I don't think that's the case.
I haven't been to the top one yet.
Yeah. You should. It's cool.
Yeah.
It's not as cool as the mansion, though. There's so much cool stuff.
Yeah, there's like a whole... I honestly, like, I got the map for this area, like the top left area, but I haven't explored any of it yet, so I haven't even touched that bit yet.
I love that area too. That's where that's like the green area, right?
Yeah, like if we're talking about like several levels up, the highest level is the green area, like, in the sky. So
yeah,
there's that.
I loved that. Yeah,
but then like the area below that too, I've not explored yet.
Yeah, I was so like after 30 hours in this DLC, like getting into green like verdant fields was like really weird. It was like a moment, dude, because like I teleported there. That's how I first got there. There was like a teleporter that took me there, and I like it kind of took my breath away. It was like, because and what should be like a standard sight in any fantasy game, Elden Ring is just like so miserable with its environments that it's like such a unique sight, you know. I will say though, worst performing area in the DLC for me.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, horrendous. Yeah. I mean, like bad frame times. It's still like reporting 60, but it feels like 20. Like it's so bad.
That's lame.
So I didn't spend very much time there, unfortunately.
But yeah,
I can't remember what Tau ruins. Yeah.
Ruins. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's another thing that I kind of like. I have to comment on the verticality of this world.
Oh my god,
is just unbelievable. Like I think Vati Video said it. It's like Miyazaki said it was about the size of Limgrave, and it's in reality it's like 20 Limgraves stacked on top of each other, and that's kind of true.
Yeah.
It's just there's so much verticality to this world, and it's just makes it that much more rewarding and rich to explore.
It does make it very hard to explore, though.
It makes it so hard to explore, but in a good way, where it feels like you're genuinely exploring this, like forgotten, ancient, decrepit, cursed place.
I feel that way now. I found it very frustrating early on when I was like looking down this cliff and I saw all the stuff I wanted to do, and there was just no way to get down to it.
But it's crazy too, because there's no way to really see the verticality in the map. Like, yeah, you can see places where like it's suggested that like, okay, this is like further, like lower in altitude, this stuff's higher in altitude. But like the sites of grace that you find, you know, they're just kind of like on the map, like boom, they're here. So it's like hard to tell if like this grace is like, okay, is this on like this level of the map, or is it like further below, that sort of thing. But yeah, that's something that really impressed me, because like the base game, like it had verticality to it too, but not to this, not even close to this extent.
Yeah. There was usually an elevator in the base game, and it was that simple, like the Dectus elevator, or
but like what it really feels like to me, like areas like Stormvale Castle or like the Landale Capital, which are really like dense and layered, and like, you know, many paths to explore, like many interconnected paths that connect different parts of the level to each other. It's just that philosophy applied to the whole freaking world of the DLC.
I mean, the whole world connects to the keep, the Shadow Keep, basically. Like, or at least that's how it feels to me. Like, it feels like you can get anywhere from there.
Really interesting. Yeah. I still need to explore more of Shadow Keep, but
yeah.
And also interesting. Did you know that you didn't have to fight Rolana? There was a way around her.
Yes, my buddy Tyler ended up finding that. He needed more Shadow Tree blessings and found a way. You can get like if that's the other thing I have kind of beef with people talking about how hard this DLC is. You can get a really high Shadow Tree blessing level before you fight a single boss.
Yeah, It's like, the same really philosophy high. Elden Ring has always had.
Exactly.
Even like from the very beginning, like when it shows you the Tree Sentinel, it's like you don't have to fight this guy. You can like leave, explore, level up, then come back and destroy him. You know.
I have so much beef with people talking about the difficulty, because genuinely this game has a million mechanics. Like it's difficult if you ignore multiplayer, if you ignore summons, if you ignore spirit ashes, if you ignore the powerful builds. Like, you have to be ignoring like 80% of this game to make that challenging, like, diehard experience.
That is so true. Like, they, more than most games, Elden Ring really gives you so many tools that you can use or not use if you want.
Right. Like, I didn't play through this DLC, like, I haven't summoned for any of the boss fights, and that has nothing to do with, like, being macho or something. I just didn't need to. Like, I just didn't feel compelled to at any point. They all felt beatable to me.
Right, yeah. No, I mean, like, I think all of their boss fights feel beatable, right? Like, it's never the case where it's just like, okay, this is impossible. Even though, like, maybe the last boss might tick that box, but I don't know. I haven't gotten there yet.
The last boss is super, super beatable. It is hard, but, like, I just haven't learned the patterns yet. But the one before the last boss, I'll say, actually seemed pretty unbeatable to me for a bit. It took me a while to beat it. I'm not going to spoil too much about it, but I just felt like I couldn't deal enough damage before it killed me. Like, there was like a timing thing to it. And, but I loved it because it was really different from a lot of the other bosses, and it made me change up my strategy. It made me actually like sit down and look at my toolkit and do something other than dodging and attacking.
Wow.
Yeah. And it may be embarrassing to admit, this is the first boss fight I ever used an Ash of War against.
Oh, wow. I mean, that's high praise, though.
I'd never touched them, but I had to, like, sit down and look at my toolkit and, like, find an Ash of War that was actually... That's the, like, weapon art things, right?
Ash of War? Yeah. That's...
Making sure I'm getting the name right. And, I had to, like, find one because I just wasn't... My DPS was too low to beat this.
Mm-hmm.
and I had to increase it.
I'm excited to see what it is. I imagine at some point you fight Mikola, but like everyone's like so in love with Mikola in this DLC. I don't know. Like maybe you don't fight him, but who knows?
I
know, but I don't.
I know, but I will never tell.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I will tell.
I mean, like
whenever
obviously
you
at
get
some
there.
point you fight Mesmer because like he's the big like statue
Yeah,
that comes in the collector's edition.
We've seen footage of that fight,
and
in
you've
the trailers,
seen footage of that fight.
Mesmer.
But, like, that can't be the last boss fight. Like I imagine,
It's
like
not the last boss
that's
fight,
probably
no.
the second to last boss fight, and then the last boss fight is like something crazy.
Mesmer is really hard. Mesmer is the one I expected people to be comparing to Millennia. Mesmer, like, really made me. It's the only boss in the DLC that I actually like kind of got stonewalled by and had to like really lock in. And there are still moves like the time I finally beat Mesmer. There's a move he does that I do not know how to dodge to this day. I just got lucky and he didn't use it on the fight that I finally
That's
won.
so terrifying.
Yeah. His second phase is insane. But it's a really fun fight. Like, all of it is super, super learnable, super, like, you know, I wasn't getting hit. The time that I beat him, I think I used, like, 2 flasks or something. Like, when you figure it out, you figure it out.
Yeah. Man, I'm excited. Like,
Yeah.
there's still so much ahead of me. Like, I've already played so much. It's definitely, like, it's like bigger than Dark Souls 1, you know? Like,
It is, yeah.
It's bigger than an entire Souls game, which is
Okay.
just...
Yeah, like, by hour
Insane.
count, even for me, like, I think Dark Souls 1 was, like, 30 hours for me, and I've spent 40 in this DLC.
Just
It's
wild,
bigger
man.
than Dark Souls 3, I think. I was actually
I
looking...
think so.
There were a lot of criticisms. Dark Souls 3 being the last Souls DLC that happened. And there were a lot of criticisms about Dark Souls 3 because, like, I think it was $40 for all the DLC for Dark Souls 3. And I think there were only, like, under 10 bosses in that. And there's, like, 40 in Shadow of the Erdtree.
Yeah. And granted, like, a lot of them don't have the same pageantry as, like, the Dancing Lion or Rulana or Mesmer.
But enough of them
but,
do that,
Yeah.
like, yeah. And a lot of them do have a decent amount of pageantry around them.
But yeah, I mean, like, that's not to disparage. Like, I like the smaller bosses, too. They break up the sort of pacing and stuff.
Dude, that Black Jail Knight, is that his name?
Yeah, the guy at the very beginning, right?
Super glad that was there to remind me how to play this
Yeah.
video game.
No, that was the first... I think that's what, like, made people mad at first. Because they fought this random dude
Yeah.
and, like... Not even like a main boss, and it was just like annihilating them. And they were like, "What is this?"
Yeah. No, if you're going in with Shadow Tree Zero, he's actually pretty tough. Yeah.
He kills you in like 2 hits.
Yeah.
So
with
you
his
just
like
have
dumb ranged attack. Yeah.
to, yeah.
Yeah.
What a DLC though, man. It's,
Yeah, I really
it's one
enjoyed
for
it.
the ages.
Yeah.
All right. Do we have anything else we want to say about Shadow of the Erdtree, Mike?
It's crazy. I was gonna say
No,
it's
I
crazy
haven't
that
touched
Elden Ring may be Game of the Year twice.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I think officially it can't even be nominated, but to me, this is the best video game I've played in
It's in the running.
in
It's
2023.
There's a lot of steep competition coming in the next few months. But yeah, it's definitely up there.
Did I say 2023?
You did. It's 2024.
I
But
was
yeah.
like, what? For a second, I was like, "What year is it again?"
Yeah.
But yeah, no, yeah, like I don't know. There was a lot of good stuff already this year for me. Like Balatro is really up there for me.
I forgot that was this year. Yeah.
Animal Well was really good.
Animal
but
Well. Helldivers is honestly still on my list.
Helldivers is up
Yeah.
there. Yeah, but there's just something about that Elden Ring, man, that just gets me going.
We have Sparking Zero coming. We have
Sparking Zero,
the
yeah.
Factorio 2.0 plus Space Age. Satisfactory is officially coming out this year. Like, it's a
Great year.
stacked year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Insanely stacked.
All right, what, if anything, are we playing besides Elden Ring?
I bought a lot of games in the Steam sale, so I've been playing pretty much everything.
Oh, yeah? What, name one?
I started playing X4 Foundations.
What's that?
The X Universe series, not to be confused with X.com, is it's a space sim with more emphasis on running like a space empire than just being one person.
That sounds cool.
Yeah. So currently I have a fleet of like 3 ships that I use. I haven't gotten to where I can build stations yet, but I have 3 ships that I use to like run trade routes and everything.
Is it like real time, turn based?
It's real time.
Okay.
Completely real time, and you manage it mostly from your cockpit
Okay.
of the ship. So it shares like DNA of Elite and No Man's Sky and everything.
I see.
Most of your
okay.
time spent in a cockpit.
Yeah. But you're controlling other people as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can kind of
I
give
was
them
picturing
orders.
something like Stellaris, but this seems like a lot more
Yeah,
I
me
guess,
too.
hands-on.
Yeah, it's very hands-on. I am not that deep into it. Apparently the game really starts cooking at like 100 hours, and I'm 7 hours in.
Oh, good.
No, the hardest part about the game is making your first 1,000,000 credits, and then after you make the first 1,000,000, it kind of eases out from there.
Yeah.
Just like real life.
Yeah, honestly, yeah.
Just like real life.
You just need a small loan of 1 million credits.
You also have to fight off the aliens.
So
Or
there's combat.
just one group. Yeah, it's both space battle simulator because the space battles are kind of interesting to watch and look into, and you can fly a little fighter in through them if you really wanted to.
Yeah.
But most of the meat of the game is the sandbox, and it is managing a trading empire or a military fleet bolstered by a trading empire. Completely single player too. There's no multiplayer.
Okay.
So
Becoming
everything's
increasingly
simulated there.
popular.
Oh yeah, the X series has been around since I think the 90s with X1.
Okay.
So it's not exactly a new series.
But this is the latest one.
This is the latest one.
And when did it come out?
This one came out 2018, I think.
Okay, so it's not new. It's
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just got a DLC recently though, so they kind of release a game and then update it for 6, 7, 8 years.
Okay.
X2 got its last DLC, or X3, which released in 2008, got its last DLC last year.
Wow.
Yeah, it got
Long after X4 was out.
2021. It got a DLC.
Weird.
Well, there was a sequel called X Rebirth out. It was still
I like-
getting updates and attention.
I'm looking at the Steam page. I like the visuals of this game.
Oh, it is very beautiful.
Yeah.
I like it. It's fun. I don't know if I can sink more time into it because I have a very busy slate of games to go through.
Yeah.
You know, I saw an interesting statistic someone put out that there's like, I think $19 billion worth of Steam games that have not even been played.
Yeah. It's a big number.
That's my library.
Yeah,
Which
I was
is
going to say,
just-
half of them are from me.
Yeah, I know. Like that totally checks out. Like with video game consumer habits, because I'm the same way on PlayStation. Where
Yeah.
like
They
they
just-
have these sales, and I just buy these things. Like I'll play this one day, and then I never do.
I actually can't remember. I broke off. I can't remember the last time I bought a Steam sale game. Because I just kind of got to the point where I will not buy a game unless I'm going to play it that day.
Yeah,
I just won't
which
do
is
it
the
anymore.
better way to be.
Yeah, because it'll be on sale cheaper later.
But $19 billion, man.
It's a lot,
of unplayed games. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's a state economy. Like,
That's
Yeah.
just so much money.
have a small state. But so you haven't been playing much, Ahmed? Just Shadow of the Erdtree?
No, it's just been pure Elden Ring for me, man.
So I haven't. Playing is a strong word for what I've been doing, but FSR 3.1 came out recently, and I've been kind of on a binge of like trying out the games that it's supported in, which is pretty much just Starfield and the Nixxes games. All of the Nixxes PlayStation ports.
Oh yeah. Okay. Cool.
And but that came out. FSR 3.1 and XESS 1.3 both came out recently. And they're catching up with NVIDIA in a lot of ways. And this is not just me saying this. This is a lot of Digital Foundry, although they haven't covered 3.1 yet. But a lot of people are saying at 4K quality, it's not really going to matter which one you choose in most games unless they have a really botched implementation of one of the three. And
Right.
all three have botched implementations in different places. Anything under that DLSS is still very, very clearly king, with XESS right behind it. But the interesting thing is that FSR now can do frame generation decoupled from upscaling. So you can use DLSS to upscale and FSR frame gen. Which
That's
means...
wonderful.
Yeah. if you are the owner of a 3080 or a 2080, or even older than that, frankly, although you wouldn't be using DLSS, but this is really good. It really makes a 40 series graphics card from NVIDIA a really hard sell right now, because you could use a 30 series with FSR frame gen and DLSS 3 and, a 3080 and a 4080 have a very small gap between them now. And even AMD, you can use XeSS and it looks 99% as good as DLSS and use FSR frame gen and get there and compete with a 4080 or even a 4090 in a lot of games if you're on an AMD card.
So have you noticed any input lag with FSR frame gen?
Yes. Interestingly, it actually using it on Spider-Man, that was the game I have that supports FSR frame gen. Spider-Man and Starfield, I can't perceive it at all. If I'm using a wireless controller anyway, and I don't think it meaningfully adds any input lag. It's negligible. I will say on Steam Deck, interestingly, you can do high settings now in Spider-Man Miles Morales or Spider-Man Remastered, high settings, FSR quality, and FSR frame gen, and you're at 60 frames per second. It feels more like 30, though. There's substantial input delay there for a handheld. Huh. Yeah. And that actually got an update today that made it better, but it's still noticeable for sure. It's not noticeable enough that I wouldn't use it, I don't think, but it is noticeable enough that if you're looking for it, it's there. So it depends on the game for sure. I would never use it in a shooter. You're not using this in Doom, certainly. But the gold standard right now for pretty much for everybody that's not on NVIDIA, the gold standard is XeSS upscaling 1.3, which is just remarkable. XeSS uses AI just like DLSS does, but it uses emulation to get it to run on other cards, which there's no reason NVIDIA couldn't have done that. They chose not to. And it's very similar in picture quality. And then FSR frame gen to get locked 120 frames per second in any game it supports it. It's magic.
Yeah, FSR frame gen in particular excites me as an avid PlayStation 5 player, because that is certainly a technology that people are going to start using on console more and more.
Yeah, it's basically just free if they can get... FSR 3.1 is also an upscaling improvement. It's still not as good as DLSS or XeSS, but it is actually a pretty big improvement, and that's coming to PlayStation as well, I think. Although so is a PlayStation upscaler. So. Right,
PSSR, which I guess that's another thing for Digital Foundry to start comparing and zooming in pixels.
The Digital Foundry video is not out yet on FSR 3.1, which is saddening to me. I'm excited to see it.
That's kind of surprising. They're usually pretty quick on those.
I think
I'm sure they're busy.
There's a lot to look at with it, because it actually is worse than 2.2 in some games and better in others. And there are situations where it is significantly outperforming DLSS, but they're kind of rare, and most of the time it's not nearly as good. It's kind of weird. But the short story is, at 4K quality and above, you're not gonna in a blind sample, unless you're Digital Foundry, you're gonna have a very hard time telling which upscaler is being used now between the three.
You're saying you don't slow your games down to 4x and zoom in?
Well, I do. Yeah, I get out my magnifying glass. That's what's killing me. I've watched a million videos of people comparing these upscalers, and the standard is to run the game at 1440p FSR DLSS performance mode, which is 720p getting upscaled to 1440p. Yeah, it looks bad. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
It does it does make it much more obvious that DLSS is better. DLSS is always better, but that makes it far more obvious. But I think it's a really weird use case to look at, because who's doing that?
Right.
That's if you're on a really old PC, maybe you're doing that. But if you're running a game at 720p and upscaling to 1440, you should expect compromise for sure. Because even DLSS can't do that very well.
You want to give it 1080p,
artifacts.
Right?
Yeah, minimum 1080p. Yeah, which is quality, I think, if you're doing 1440p.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, I don't know, kind of an insane, I don't know, but worth looking at, because it does show the differences. But it is still that's just not a realistic use case, I don't think.
Yeah. So were you basically just testing this technology on different games, or did you actually like play through a game?
Nah, I didn't play through a game. Just been testing it. I'm like super fascinated with it right now. The future's looking bright because they've, with this new update with FSR as well, they decoupled it from like game code, so you can update the FSR DLL, which means FSR, XESS, and DLSS can all be updated by the player now, even if the developers don't bother to do it. So any games that come out from now on supporting these technologies are going to get better and better over time, which is really fascinating to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like, I think we're at a really good point technically with these technologies.
And FSR frame gen is just really exciting to me in general, and like egg on my face because when DLSS announced their frame gen, I was like making fun of it. But any game that you play on a controller, you're not going to really notice this input lag, and it means if the developers can get it to 60 FPS by itself, then you can get to 120 for free. And so like people that have these higher refresh rate displays and stuff, you just get to game at 120 frames per second now, and it feels really good.
Yeah, I am curious if we are on the cusp of like finally putting 30 FPS to bed. But
I will
I
say,
wouldn't get my hopes too high, but like especially in like CPU constrained situations. But I think we're closer now than ever.
Yeah, CPU constrained. Yeah, I do wonder. I hope Digital Foundry does this, where they test games in different scenarios, because I wonder if CPU constrained games, if it's running at 30 FPS, it already doesn't feel that good input delay wise. And I would think frame gen could get you up to like 60 or 120, and it's not going to feel better, but it is going to look better. And I'm curious to see if they do that in any cases. Mm-hmm. Dragon's Dogma comes to mind.
Yeah, Dragon's Dogma. That's a huge one. I would absolutely go back to it and play it more if it was locked 60.
It got an update recently that apparently makes it a lot better on VRR.
It made it better, but like not by much on console.
Yeah. I just haven't bought it yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's still like sub 40 like most of the time. So
yeah. The copium I'm clinging to is that all these upscaler technologies will be included in Monster Hunter Wilds, and it'll be enough to get it to run at 60 on Steam Deck.
God, I hope so.
Yeah, I think it's likely. I mean, Capcom usually includes these things in their newest releases, but they don't patch them in later. I can tell you that. But it was just cool checking in on it.
Yeah, for sure. All right, any other games you guys want to shout out, talk about? No? All right, then. I think that'll do it for us this week. Thank you all for listening. You can follow us at Podcast Game Talk on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Click the link in the description to join our Discord and talk to us there. Please like, rate, and review us on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other podcast services you use. Thank you, Connor and Mike.
Yeah, see you guys next week.
See you next week.
See you next week. Bye.